first of all, one of the things that we're doing in our agency, which I think is across the board, is a cross-pollination across the world from a creative standpoint. So, for example, if we're doing a campaign in the U.S. and we're looking for new ideas, we don't just go to the creative people in the United States. We go to creative people outside for outside opinions. So, for a specific example might be package design. So as the world becomes more global, a big client like Kraft or Mondelez or any of our Procter & Gamble could be looking for inspiration for a global package that might be inspired by India or inspired by France or inspired by China or whatever their largest markets are. So I think that by the nature of India itself, its opportunities lie within the country and outside the country. I think number two, the largesse of the population is such that the creative industry must, in fact, increasingly flourish and grow as large companies, both inside India as well as outside India, want to capture more of their head and heart. And I think there's a third thing that should not be overlooked, is that the technology adoption, particularly in cellular, is so high that the fact of the matter is that all of the new technologies favor the Indian consumer, and you don't have to have some of what I would call the old-fashioned things that had to be built in a bricks and mortar age, because in fact you can just reach people on their phone. And so it enables a whole new tech-enabled, as I said in my speech, creatively led environment that can reach a targeted consumer in India like nobody's business. So I think it's just going to expand, I think, more exponentially than geometrically. So what was brought up this morning in the first session, that, for example, the Me Too movement has actually not helped but hurt young women in terms of being hired. That's a very unfortunate outcome, and I suspect it will change over time, but that's not what was intended by the Me Too movement, certainly. And I think one of the things that happens in general is that many of these movements and many of these things are driven by people on the edges. So I'll use American politics as an example. You've got extremes on both sides, when actually what's necessary is a very reasonable road down the middle. And I think that we have sometimes a tendency to overreact and overcompensate. So either agencies or clients become so conservative and so fear-based rather than love-based that we cannot show our love or our passion. So an example, was talked about earlier today, that, for example, with women should not be objectified, absolutely, but they are sensual, are sexual, are creative beings. And there's a nuance there in terms of how you present that. But you could end up in a situation where it gets overthought and suddenly the portrayal of a woman in all of her fullness gets boiled down to being very stereotypical in another way, because the client's afraid of this and don't do that and don't do this, and pretty soon you end up in a situation where everything's really bland and doesn't break through and doesn't present the full head and heart of what we are as human beings. So I think there are two key words. One was mentioned this morning about women. I'm going to use a different word. What I say to my creative people is, look at your consumer with love. If you think of them as you're being your mother, your child, your grandmother, you will create advertising for them that respects who they are, period, end of story. So I think that we need to just keep that in mind, is that we are heart-driven and head-driven as human beings, and we need to remember that. But passion is the driver for my business, creative business, and we have to keep that at the forefront. Well, I was one, like Droga 5, I was acquired. You know, what happens, I don't think that at all. What happens to Droga 5 happened to us as well, which was we were so successful. We were the fastest growing agency on Madison Avenue. We won, you know, Agency of the Year 3 times, etc. And were at a size where we could, in fact, serve almost any client of any size. But we could only do that in the offices that we had in the US. We had to join a network so we could serve our clients globally, like Intel or Kraft or Mondelez or Verizon or any of these large clients that we had. And we could not grow fast enough because, unlike back in the years when Ogilvy Mather was built on the back of American Express, McCann Erickson was built on the back of Coca-Cola. They grew with their clients. But the fact is, clients are now just global, you know, so you have to you're either global or you're not. So it really depends on what your aspirations are. In the end, it's very simple. He who has the best idea wins. And in the United States, I can't speak for India, but in the United States, the average consumer is getting 15,000 advertising impressions a day. 15,000 a day. So your competition, it's not how much money you have. Your competition is not other products in your category. Your competition is clutter. So the person that has the best idea, whether they are in a 20,000 person network or a 5-person shop, it doesn't matter. It's going to be, in the end, he who has the best people with the best culture with the best ideas. That's what I think.